Hello everyone and welcome to the Young and the Restless channel. I hope everyone is having a wonderful day. Before we begin, please hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. In the shadowy chaos unfolding around Adam Newman, a dangerous game begins to tighten its grip, pulling every player deeper into a storm of desperation and risk. Determined and relentless, Adam steps forward to confront Matt Clark, a man as unpredictable as he is dangerous, knowing full well that every move could trigger consequences he may not be able to control. At the center of it all lies Nick Newman, trapped in a spiraling crisis that threatens not just his life, but the fragile threads connecting everyone involved. As the tension builds, it becomes clear that Matt isn't playing a simple game. He's orchestrating something far more sinister, throwing curveballs that test Adam's resolve at every turn. Just when the pressure threatens to become unbearable, Chelsea Lawson arrives, stepping into the chaos on April 15th with a fierce determination to stand beside Adam. Her presence offers a flicker of hope, but in a situation this volatile, even hope feels fragile, as if it could shatter at any moment. And as the dust begins to stir in one place, another journey quietly begins, setting the stage for an emotional collision no one is truly prepared for. By April 17th, Sharon Newman makes her way to Las Vegas, driven by instinct, fear, and a love that refuses to fade despite the distance that has grown between her and Nick. The city's neon lights flicker like warning signals as Sharon steps into the unfolding nightmare, unknowingly heading toward a moment that could change everything. Soon, she becomes part of Nick's desperate rescue team, joining forces in a race against time that feels as heartbreaking as it is terrifying. But the stakes rise even higher when Matt follows through on his cruel promise, pushing Nick deeper into addiction, feeding his vulnerability until it threatens to consume him completely. What was once a rescue mission begins to twist into something far darker as Nick's strength falters under the weight of the drugs flooding his system. Matt's chilling prediction echoes in the background that Nick would be too broken, too lost to save anyone, including Sharon, Noah Newman, and Sienna Bacall. And for a moment, it feels like that devastating prophecy might come true. Yet even in the darkest corners of this nightmare, fate begins to shift in unexpected ways. As Matt finds himself juggling multiple threats, Adam's persistence, Chelsea's support, and the looming presence of Reza Thompson, cracks begin to form in his carefully constructed control. Distraction becomes his weakness, and in that fleeting lapse, an opportunity emerges. It's in this fragile moment that Sharon steps forward, her fear turning into action as she breaks into a storage room, her heart pounding with a sense of dread she can't shake. What she finds inside is nothing short of devastating. Nick lies there barely conscious, his life hanging by a thread, his body weakened by the relentless assault of drugs he never stood a chance against. Time seems to freeze as the weight of the moment crashes down on Sharon, the man she has loved for so long, now slipping away before her eyes. Panic surges through her, but beneath it lies something stronger, an unbreakable determination to save him, no matter the cost. In a race against time, Sharon calls for help, knowing that every second could mean the difference between life and death. The urgency is suffocating as she fights to get Nick to a hospital, clinging to the hope that he hasn't slipped too far beyond reach. And in those fragile, flickering moments between consciousness and oblivion, something extraordinary begins to unfold. Nick, hovering on the edge of life and death, reaches for the truth buried deep within his heart, his voice weak but filled with raw, unfiltered emotion. And he confesses a regret that cuts through the chaos, that he wishes he had remarried Sharon, that he let their love drift away when it should have been held onto with everything he had. The words spill out as if time itself is running out, as if he believes this might be his final chance to say them. It's a moment suspended between heartbreak and hope, where love refuses to stay silent even in the face of death, but Sharon refuses to let that be the end of their story. With tears in her eyes and strength in her voice, she urges Nick to hold on, to fight through the darkness and survive this nightmare. She doesn't accept his goodbye, instead, she demands a future, one where he can ask her again when he's healed, when he's strong enough to stand beside her once more. It's not just a plea, it's a promise of something better waiting on the other side of this pain. Sharon pushes him to make a vow, to fight for his life, not just for himself, but for the chance at a second beginning, a do-over wedding that could rewrite everything they lost. In that moment, love becomes more than memory. It becomes a lifeline, something tangible and powerful enough to pull Nick back from the brink. The nightmare Matt created begins to twist into something unexpected, as hope quietly starts to take root where despair once ruled. As the dust slowly begins to settle, the possibility of a future emerges, fragile, uncertain, but undeniably real. If Nick survives the long road ahead, including the battle through rehab that will test every ounce of his strength, there may be something waiting for him at the end of it all. With a second chance, not just at life, but at love. The idea of a remarriage ceremony between Nick and Sharon lingers like a distant light, something beautiful born from the wreckage of everything they've endured. Yet nothing is guaranteed, and the path forward remains filled with twists, shocks, and revelations that promise to shake them all to their core. One thing is certain, the story is far from over, and as the storm continues to rage, the bonds between these characters will be tested in ways that could either break them completely or bring them closer than ever before. As the echoes of that fragile promise linger in the sterile glow of the hospital, the battle for Nick Newman's life becomes something far more than a medical emergency. It becomes a war fought on the edge of hope and despair. Machines hum steadily, marking each second that passes as both a gift and a warning, while Sharon Newman refuses to leave his side, her presence unwavering even as exhaustion threatens to pull her under. Every shallow breath Nick takes feels like a victory carved out of darkness, yet the shadow of what he's endured looms heavily over them both. Doctors move in and out with cautious expressions, their words measured, never offering too much certainty, as if even they understand that this is no ordinary recovery. Outside those walls, the chaos hasn't stopped. Adam Newman is still locked in a tense, dangerous standoff with Matt Clark, determined to ensure that the man responsible for all this destruction can't slip away into the shadows. With Chelsea Lawson by his side, Adam pushes forward, knowing that every second counts, not just for justice, but for the people he refuses to lose. The tension splits the story into two parallel battles, one for survival and one for reckoning, and both are reaching their breaking point. Back in the hospital room, time seems to stretch and blur, each moment carrying the weight of everything that's been left unsaid between Sharon and Nick. The past lingers in the silence, filled with missed chances and broken paths, but also with a love that never truly faded, no matter how far they drifted apart. When Nick finally stirs, it's subtle at first, a faint movement, a whisper of consciousness, but to Sharon, it feels like the world itself has shifted. Hope floods her chest, so suddenly it almost hurts, and for a brief fragile moment, it feels like they've been given a miracle. Yet even as his eyes flutter open, the reality of what lies ahead remains daunting. Recovery won't be simple, and the road through rehab will demand more strength than Nick has ever had to summon before. Still, beneath the fear, there's something new taking root, a quiet determination fueled by the promise he made and the future Sharon refused to let him give up on. Meanwhile, the storm surrounding Matt begins to collapse in on itself as his carefully controlled chaos unravels under pressure. Juggling too many enemies, too many moving pieces, he starts to lose his grip, and that's exactly what Adam has been waiting for. The confrontation between them sharpens, every word and action charged with the weight of everything Matt has done, not just to Nick, but to everyone caught in his destructive path. There's a sense that this is the beginning of the end, that Matt's reign of manipulation and cruelty is finally reaching its breaking point. Yet even now, danger lingers in every corner, because a man like Matt doesn't go down quietly, and his desperation could still spark one last devastating move. As the pieces fall into place, the question isn't just whether justice will be served, but at what cost, and who might still be hurt before it's over. And through it all, Sharon holds on to the promise that changed everything, that fragile, desperate vow made in the space between life and death. It becomes her anchor as Nick begins the long, painful climb back to himself, a journey filled with setbacks, struggles, and moments where giving up would be so much easier than pushing forward. But now, there's something waiting for him on the other side, something worth fighting for with everything he has left. The idea of a second chance at love no longer feels like a distant dream. It feels real, tangible, something they can actually reach if they're strong enough to endure what comes next. Their story, once stalled and uncertain, begins to move again with a renewed sense of purpose, weaving hope into the aftermath of devastation. As the dust slowly settles and the chaos begins to quiet, the future remains uncertain but undeniably full of possibility. The scars left behind won't fade easily, and the road ahead will test every bond, every promise, and every ounce of strength these characters possess. Yet within that uncertainty lies something powerful, the chance to rebuild, to heal, and to reclaim what was nearly lost forever. And if Nick can make it through the darkness, if he can hold on to the promise he made in his weakest moment, then perhaps on the other side of it all, there will be something waiting, a moment of light, a celebration of survival, and maybe even a wedding that proves love can endure anything. As the days stretch into a fragile rhythm of recovery, Nick Newman begins to awaken, not just physically, but emotionally, forced to confront the wreckage left behind by everything he's endured. The hospital room slowly gives way to the stark, disciplined environment of rehab, where every step forward feels hard-earned and every setback cuts a little deeper than expected. There are moments when doubt creeps in, whispering that the climb back isn't worth the pain, that the damage may be too great to undo. But then, like a steady light cutting through the fog, Sharon Newman is there, reminding him sometimes gently, sometimes fiercely, of the promise he made when everything was slipping away. That promise becomes more than words, it becomes a lifeline, something he clings to when his strength falters and the weight of his addiction threatens to pull him backward. And slowly, almost imperceptibly at first, Nick begins to fight, not just to survive, but to become someone worthy of the future they dared to imagine. Outside the quiet battles of recovery, the fallout from Matt Clark's actions continues to ripple through everyone involved, leaving tension and unanswered questions in its wake. Adam Newman refuses to let the story end without accountability, pushing forward with a relentless determination that borders on obsession. With Chelsea Lawson standing beside him, he works to ensure that Matt faces the consequences of the chaos he unleashed, even as the emotional toll of the ordeal begins to surface. There's a quiet reckoning happening within Adam as well, a realization of how far he's willing to go to protect the people he cares about and what that says about the man he's becoming. The confrontation with Matt may be nearing its end, but its impact lingers, leaving scars that won't fade easily and truths that can't be ignored. In the aftermath, every character is left to pick up the pieces, to decide what matters most when everything else has been stripped away. Meanwhile, in the fragile space between healing and hope, something begins to grow again between Nick and Sharon, something that feels both familiar and entirely new. Their conversations are no longer weighed down by the past alone. Instead, they start to carry the quiet possibility of a future, one built not on what they lost, but on what they've managed to find again. There are moments of vulnerability where old wounds resurface, where the fear of repeating past mistakes lingers just beneath the surface. But there are also moments of warmth, small, genuine, and deeply human, that remind them why they fell in love in the first place. Each shared glance, each tentative smile feels like a step towards something bigger, something that once seemed impossible. And through it all, the idea of that remarriage, the promise made in a moment of desperation, begins to transform into something real, something they can actually reach if they're brave enough. As time moves forward, the world around them slowly returns to something resembling normal, but nothing is quite the same as it was before. The storm may have passed, but its echoes remain, shaping every decision and every relationship in subtle, lasting ways. Nick's journey through rehab becomes a testament to resilience, a reminder that even in the darkest moments, there is a path back if you're willing to fight for it. Sharon stands beside him through every step, not as someone trying to fix him, but as someone who believes in him, even when he struggles to believe in himself. And somewhere along that journey, the question that once felt like a distant dream begins to resurface with quiet urgency. What happens when he's finally ready to ask her again? In the end, it's not a grand dramatic moment that defines what comes next, but something softer, more profound, a sense of earned hope that lingers in the air between them. The possibility of a wedding, of a second chance at forever, no longer feels like an escape from the past, but a continuation of everything they've survived together. And while the future is still unwritten, filled with uncertainties and challenges yet to come, one thing becomes undeniably clear: this story, shaped by love, loss, and redemption, is far from over. If anything, it's only just beginning, and the next chapter promises to be just as powerful, just as emotional, and just as unforgettable as everything that came before.